one of the things that I dreaded doing in the beginning of my journey was to talk about my wins. Because in the beginning, you're learning the methods. You're shitty at it. You're trying to get into the flow. You're trying to do visuals, and you can't get your mind to work and open up, and you can't. You're just trying to get into the rhythm of things. And then when all of a sudden things start to heal, right, physically, I noticed that things were going away slowly, right, and in time, if you look back and if you really think about it, you're like, you know what? 5 things went away. Oh my goodness. This 10 things now. Oh my goodness. Blah, blah, blah went away. And this went away. But the things that I didn't like to talk about are the ones that were really scary, right? When I had 70 symptoms, it was just a shit show. And most of them were just in the background. And I just came to accept that, yeah, I'm fucked. I'm fucked up. I'm probably going to live, a long life of suffering. I was forced to acceptance because it was just too much for me and exhausting for me to freak out about every one of these symptoms. I just thought, okay, there's something going on. I got all these symptoms. It doesn't make any sense. There's something going on. Okay, I'm fucked. C'est la vie. This is it. This is my reality. Hey, that rhymed. 1, 2, 3. Do re mi. But there were some of them out of the 70 that were really scary, right? So the gut issues, some of the food reactions, some of the physical symptoms would scare the shit out of you, right? And they're one of those things that you desperately were trying to get rid of them, right? And then so you do the methods. You don't really know if you believe the methods because you don't have any evidence of things working yet. So, but you do it anyway because you got nothing left, right? You've been down all these rabbit holes. You've tried all these crazy protocols. You tried all these supplements and listened to the gurus on Facebook groups, and they made you feel worse. So you figured, I'm going to do this thing. I saw the success stories, people, it seems to be working, and I finally found people like me, and they're recovered, and they, this person and that person, that they look like average Joes like me, right? So you put your time in, right, and then you start to heal. Great. One thing goes away, and then that dreaded symptom goes away, and then this dreaded symptom goes away. You're like, oh, I don't even want to talk about that. Okay, great. Okay. And then this symptom goes away. Okay, it's like eggshells. Everything's eggshells, right? And this is before I started doing the allow methods, where I actually would, ask for more, or if there was something that I was scared of, or distracting from, or, resisting. This is when I started to bring it in, right? I started to learn to allow, ask for more, get excited, bring it in. When before I was like, So when we were dealing with this symptom, the whole process of it, the journey of it was like, right? And then you're doing the methods that they teach you, then it starts to go away, and then, finally you've moved on to another, freaky symptom or whatever. But sometimes some of these coaches, and I'm one of them, they would say, let's talk about your wins, right? And then when I was asked this, right, now this is why I'm thinking that maybe I'm not going to ask people to talk about their wins till maybe later in the recovery stages, right? Because you're going to recover, right? And you're going to improve. It's just there's stages, right? And I'm thinking maybe talking about our wins in the beginning might not be such a good idea. Some people can handle it, and some people, so I guess it depends on the person. For me, I didn't like it. No. I remember I was having a coaching session with Brea, and I was like, she's like, hi, what's good, Helmet? Because that's what we did. We weren't talking about, how are you doing? How you feeling? Because I would always lead to, well, right? So it was always, what's good, right? So then I'd be like, oh, everything's blah, 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 right? This week, okay, well, let's talk about your wins from last week. And I'm like, don't really want to talk about my wins, because if I talk about my wins, that means I'm opening that thing up again, right? That dreaded symptom that I finally got away, and I figured if I open that box up again, it's going to come back. And you know what? Sometimes it did, right? And I don't want to jinx it, right? I don't want to go, yeah, that symptom's gone. Fuck you, symptom, right? You're gone now. I dominated that shit. I'm the man. Fuck yeah. The next day, right? You tap out. You're like, okay, I'm sorry. You become its bitch again, right? And I was worried that, when if if you call on something, that you're gonna jinx it, and that karma's gonna be like, ha, right? It's gonna slap you in the face and go, oh yeah, you want to learn some shit? Okay, here we go, right? Tomorrow, next week, next month, that old symptom that you hate and you're scared of, it's coming back. But at the time, I wasn't learning about taking the resistance away. For me, it was all like, do the work, stay focused, and fix this, get rid of that, and I don't want to hear this, distract, fuck off, redirect, stop, right? That's what I learned. And physically, it started to work. But don't ask me about my wins. Don't ask me about, so how I noticed that if you were to count everything up, that one symptom, you improved on that. You improved on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wow. 10 symptoms are gone now, Helmut. Let's talk about the wins. And for me, it was also a reminder of once upon a time, the dreaded moments in my life that were horrible and dark. And I didn't want to have a reminder of that. I didn't want to go back there because it was fucking triggering. Right? I don't want to talk about my wins because, that one symptom, or even if it was a light symptom, it would still trigger me because it reminded me of the beginning of my journey with the mind-body space and how I was when I first started. And when you're not fully recovered, things still trigger you along the way, right? And something that happened here, even though you defeated it almost, and you get reminded about it right here, it's like, oh, fuck. Do we really have to talk about this past thing? Even though I know it's meant well to be like, but we got to see how far you've come. Because if you have proof of how far you come, it'll push you forward, right? It makes sense. And you know what? That worked in the second half of my recovery. But in the beginning, it was like, remember this shit? Remember that horror story? Remember that exorcism? Oh, yeah. Can we not talk about that? Right? Until I learned the new methods of allowing and exposing myself to things that made me feel uncomfortable. And I did that all the time. Eventually, I got to that point. And I got to stress this. We don't want to do exposures. We don't want to do any hunting until you're ready. Right? There's stages in recovery. The first stage is learning the methods, right? Getting to know the mind-body space, making the choice that this is it. All the shit that you're dealing with is a mind-body thing, right? And that's it. And if there's any doubts, then eventually, put it on the shelf for now, and eventually in 2 years, you'll come back to it. And then we can, be a curious observer and look at it like this, and we'll be calm about it because we'll be at a better place to handle that because all our alarms will be turned off. And if there is something there, which I'm pretty confident there will be nothing there, but if there is, then you can visit it at that time and you won't give a shit about it, honestly. So when they ask you to talk about symptoms and then you do it because you want to be polite, or they wrote things down and they bring them up and you get triggered, well, guess what? Yeah, I got rid of it, but now I'm looping on it for the rest of the week, and my brain's going to try that on, right? Zip. Oh, this fits. And I'm going to have that symptom come back. And that happened. Yep. And usually when a dreaded symptom, when it finally goes away, it's like, whew. But when it comes back the first time, that's fucking scary, right? It's almost equally as scary than when you first had the symptom. But the second time it comes back, it's almost equal. Because you're like, fuck, what does this mean? Does this mean I'm starting over again? Does this mean this isn't working? Does this mean, what does this mean? Oh my God, right? On all that symptom alone is scary as it is. And this is where you got to experience it over and over again and understand it will go and it will come back. And you got to be okay with the fact that it might come back. And we got to allow everything. We got to allow any conversations that there might be that might pop up. We can't hide from everything. We try our best to create a bubble in the beginning, right? Because that's a smart thing to do in the beginning. You create a bubble because we don't want to ignite that fire because we're very, very, it's like we're oxygen and there's sparks everywhere, right? So it makes sense to eventually, we come out of the bubble when we're ready. right? Because everything happens in stages. But until then, you can easily loop on something. So we try our best to create a bubble. But sometimes you might walk into a conversation, or how are you feeling? Or let's talk about your wins when you had this, right? Oh no, reminder, looping, right? So when you're looping, if somebody's talking about a symptom, somebody walks by, talks about the C word, you allow it. You let it do its thing. You let your brain loop. Let it do its thing. Let it go wild. But then your response is, you know what? I hope that what if thought that you're looping on right now happens next week. Actually, I hope it happens today. Can we make that happen? Can we squeeze that in? Could we? Thank you. Awesome. That'd be amazing. And embrace it. Embrace that feeling. Fall in love with it. Actually ask for more, right? Because we want to take the resistance away. Because what you resist persists, right? And that alarm goes bigger and bigger and bigger. And it keeps sending that looping thought. We don't want that. No, we want to take the resistance away. So we want to acknowledge the alarms. Alarms are symptoms, feelings, mental symptoms, physical symptoms, right? We call those all alarms, right? We want to allow them to do their thing, take away the fight, because as soon as you start fighting a thought, the brain is going to give you backup because it's saying, oh, he's fighting. We got to back him up, man. We got to either fight or flee, right? So this is where you get a chance to change the program by the way you change the way you respond. Let's say the way again. So for me, I understand, let's not talk about our wins in the beginning, right? Instead, what I'll do is I'll talk about things like, even with coaching, my group coaching, I'll be like, okay, describe a situation that was uncomfortable or an obstacle that you faced. If it was a mental alarm or a physical alarm, how did you respond and how did it pan out, right? And how did you used to respond to this situation, and how are you responding now, right? So you can see the contrast and you can see how we're changing our response to our alarms. And then when we become aware of that, right, we learn, we experience it and repeat it until we don't even have to think about it anymore. We're creating a habit with our responses that we're learning right now. And then when you send the correct responses to our alarms, this allows the brain to trust that you're safe. It starts to turn off alarms, which empties your bucket, right? This thing starts getting empty, which is great. You're not carrying loads anymore. You're releasing them. So the body's able to work more efficiently. And this allows your baseline to drop down. And when it does that, it goes from survival, hardwired fight or flight mode down to rest and digest to, and when it does that, right, and it's locked in place, your alarms go back to standby, right? And it's not sending you symptoms, thoughts, or feelings anymore. The alarms are turned off.